Sometimes you can learn things by sharing stories, true stories. And American Indians have a saying, when describing miracles, it is best to be meticulous. So I'm going to share some stories with you, real life stories, miracles, and I'm going to be meticulous. And in many cases, I'll show you proof afterwards. It's a habit around here at Maui Echo Retreat. We share a miracle, everybody says, yeah, but then I show the results and it says, whoa, sort of a pattern around here. So, let's start with Johann Sebastian Bach, early 1700s composer. And I did the technique, and I was in my magic space, sitting in my chair, and there he's sitting in his chair. And after a while, boom, that whole scene went away, and it was just in this kind of a beautiful womb, round womb. And here was Bach, and here was me. And when I really, really got that was Johann Sebastian Bach, and he's really there, I'm really here, I got all excited and I said, oh, we lost so much of your music. Let's do some channeling so I can bring it back to earth. And to say that he was not pleased with my greed is putting it mildly. So what he did is he sent me a wave that made me relax. Okay, I'm in my heart now. And then, remember in the chapter, The Substance of Music, we learned the importance of preparing yourself before being a musician. Well, fasten your seatbelts, because now you're going to see how Bach did it. So what Bach showed me was that in a past lifetime in Egypt, by the way, Egypt was like a 35,000 year old civilization. It lasted a long time. Anyway, what happened is Bach went through an initiation where at the end of the initiation, you're the voice of God, you're the Hierophant. In those Egyptian initiations, you're lucky to still be alive afterwards. But he made it and he became the voice of God, the voice of Ra as it was in those days. Similar to the ancient Greek Oracle of Delphi. And he did it very well. So then he dies and he incarnates into a musical family in Germany, the Bach family. Bach in German means creek or gentle river. And he becomes a musician. And so it is no accident that by the time he's in his early 20s, he says, the sole purpose of music is none other than the glorification of God and nourishment of souls. And being typical German, he stuck right with that goal throughout his life. And he became the voice of God. How do we know he became the voice of God in music? Because his music does not die. Hundreds of years later, the whole world still plays his music, and it's as fresh now as it was then. All the great composers, they call him the composer's composer, all the great composers studied Bach. And in the 20th century, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Quincy Jones, Thelonious Monk, flamenco guitar players, Japanese shakuhachi flute players, everybody plays Bach on the planet. And I bet hundreds of years from now, they'll still be playing Bach. His music does not die. And once I got that beautiful expression, or lesson actually, he used words and he said, sometimes you can hear Egypt in my music. And I thought, oh, give me a break, German Lutheran? And then all of a sudden, whoom, I was standing by the Nile River in Egypt in those days. And I could tell it was a Nile because those boats had those Egyptian triangle sails. And as I was looking at the river, it was very beautiful. Over here was this little, maybe 10, 11-year-old kid playing this little reed instrument. And what did I hear? The second movement of the first Brandenburg Concerto. Now, before I play it for you, look at the scale Bach uses. Now, I've been around in music, and from what I've seen, no Western composer has ever used that scale until 20th century film scores. But Bach is kind of a universal composer. And that's the scale he uses. He uses an Egyptian scale, which is still, to these days, the scale that Egyptians use. So what do I hear? First of all, I hear a river. And I hear an oboe. Now, this is the second movement of the first Brandenburg Concerto. And I hear an oboe play this. Now look at that a little bit more. Now he ends on the seventh. That means something's moving inside of him. Then he lands on the sixth, the lovers. Whoa, feel that, my darling. How Egypt can you get? Egypt. And then, as he was kind of nice to me, he sent me another wave to sort of satisfy my greed. And what the wave showed me that it was very popular in his time, early 1700s, that some composer would see a little sonata for harpsichord or solo violin. And they turned those sonatas into full-blown concertos or symphonies. And sometimes many composers would take someone else's little sonata and turn them into concertos with big orchestra. So what happened was, about 2 weeks later, I was at a music store and I saw this Bach sonata for harpsichord in D minor. And I looked at it, and sure enough, I could easily see a concerto. So I took it, the sonata, and turned it into a concerto. It's probably one of his most probably one of his most climactic pieces of music I've ever heard. It just builds, and it explodes. And so that's the gift I asked for, and that's the gift I got. So that takes care of Bach. So, let's look at some stories, true stories. So I was doing the technique in the chapter preceding this chapter, And I'm sitting in a chair in the magic place, and here's the empty chair. And I've already done this with Jesus, so I was sort of warmed up. So I'm there, and Jesus walks in, and he walks right in front of me and goes, boom, right in the face. Knocks me off my chair. It didn't hurt, but the shock was amazing. So I'm on the ground, and Jesus is looking down on me and saying, can't you think about anyone else other than yourself? And I almost said, give me a break, I'm an Aries. But no, I wasn't going to get away with that one. I did. And, you know, he could have sat in the chair and said those words, but it had gone through one ear out the other. Being an Aries, he talked the language an Aries could understand. And here's another beautiful technique. It's rather childlike, but before you go to sleep, just as you're going to sleep, you ask the angels around you to take me to where you want to go in dream time. I call it spirit world. And ancient Rome, wherever you want. So I was going to sleep, and maybe nothing happens the first night or second night or third night, but sooner or later, you're there. And so I did angels around me, which means spirit guides or spirit family. Angels around me, take me to Jesus so he can help me with my music. I said it 3 times. All right, I have this vivid dream where I'm in this Renaissance castle, this giant room, full of musical instruments, giant harpsichords and bass fiddles and lutes and mandolins and a whole stack of bamboo flutes and harps and everything, and I'm pretty well happy. Violins, everything. And then at the other side of the room, Jesus walks in. Then he crawls under the harpsichord. Then he has to step over the bass viol. Then he has to walk around the flutes, and he has to walk through in between the harps. Finally, he gets to me, and he says, how about a simple song? And I composed simple songs afterward, made a lot of people happy. It goes even deeper than that. A lot of times when he says something, there's even a deeper meaning underneath it. He goes right to the core, a lot of times. And there is another way of being with Jesus, which we're now going to look at. In theater, it's well known that people who play Jesus go through something. As a matter of fact, that movie, The Passion of Christ, Mel Gibson movie, the guy who played Jesus, the stories are amazing. First of all, he got struck by lightning. Secondly, he got his shoulder dislocated when he was carrying the cross, and a whole bunch of other things. And he wasn't much that spiritual before, but afterwards, now he's doing Bible studies, and he's just whang. What you resonate, you attract. Back in Oklahoma, I used to play for tent revivals. They could get pretty wild and very strong. And the minister would say, have you let Jesus into your life? Really strong. And it took me a while to really get it. So, the technique is I put my hands on my heart, which activates the heart. When you have your hands on your heart, that activates the heart. And I ask Jesus to enter me 3 times. Now, why 3 times? It seems that it's a world thing, archetypal. Africa, American Indian, Hawaiian even. In my Oklahoma way of putting it, the first time it's a thought, second calling, they take notice, third calling, they know you mean business. But that's my Oklahoma way of putting it. But I put my hands on my heart and devoutly ask Jesus to enter me. Then I empty, as we learned in the substance of music. I empty. And then you take what you get, I take what I get, and I feel Jesus entering me. Ooh. My own experience is when Jesus enters me, all of a sudden space-time reality just goes away. Everything is just disappears. And the here and now is real. Jesus has this kind of a here and now, right here and now. Holy instant, some people call it. And I feel his presence like that. And then there's love, and then words fail. But it seems to work. And I would think this could work with other expressions of the divine. So, that's another way of being with Jesus. And I hope these stories can help you on your journey.